What's good, Foundation Nation? Today we have a review that I've been looking forward to for a while. We have the Sockibomb Slammer here, brand new from Dynamic Disc. This is the prototype. This will be exactly what, you know how disc golf is. This will be exactly what the final product is flies like. They just call things proto, and then they'll call one first run, and then the stock ones, and it's just how they make a lot of money, and that's okay because we got to get our hands on them a bit early. So the Sockibomb Slammer, this disc was made specifically for Ricky. He liked throwing the Harp, he liked throwing the Slammer, he wanted a little bit of both. What they've done is they basically have kind of what I would say this feels like initially is a Harp with a thumb track. It's like the top of a Slammer, the bottom of a Harp. Definitely deeper than a Slammer, kind of feels more like the Harp, but then you have that familiar thumb track on top. From what I've heard, this is supposed to be very overstable. That seems to be what Ricky wanted out of it for his forehand approaches and force over backhands as well. So I'm just going to throw it flat backhand first. Definitely going to get some good forehands with this though, because that's what I would use this for mostly, but we'll go backhand first. Oh, man. Okay. Well, that thing wasted no time going left. Very overstable. So we'll work on that. We'll see what it can do to fight out of stuff, but just throwing that hard and flat, that thing was moving left very quickly. All right, we're gonna go ahead and give this guy a forehand now. I'm expecting it's gonna hold pretty stable. We're actually into a headwind this time, going back this way, so this will be kind of more of a test to see. We did have a slight tailwind on the last throw. It's not a crazy headwind, but it's enough that based on the first throw, I'm expecting this to fight it quite a bit. So I'm gonna try and give this mostly a flat rip with the forehand, see what it does. All right, that came out with a little bit of hyzer, a little nose up. As expected, it had no problems dealing with the wind. Pretty much an identical flight to the backhand, just super fighting to fade out. I'm gonna try the last two throws. I'm gonna give it a forehand with Annie, so we can see how it fights out of that, because that's a shot that I would throw a lot with a disc like that. And then if it gets out of that, no problem, I'm gonna really rip on one with a backhand on Annie, and then we're gonna really see what it's made of. But so far, this thing seems to be very overstable, which is kind of what they were going for, so it's working. So far, this thing has been very overstable, so it's time for some real testing. We're gonna give it a flex forehand now, because this is a line that I would certainly want to throw with a disc. If you're claiming to be an overstable approach disc, I want to be able to give this some flex and have it at least pan to flat. I'm not like, anything that isn't like a Firebird or a tilt or whatever is not really gonna get out and want to fight out of it like that, but I expect it to at least get to flat, so we'll see what happens. I didn't really give that enough. I gave that a slight amount of anhyzer and it definitely got out of it quick. I think I'll do another one where I get it a little more vertical, but that was promising because I certainly got over on that and it had no issues. It gave me a little bit of a straighter flight because I gave it that little bit of anhyzer before crashing down. Nice flight though, nice flight. We're gonna give this one another forehand. I'm gonna get this one even more vertical just so we can really see if it's able to push out of anything. This will be a pretty extreme test. Okay, that thing's pretty beef because there's a little bit of a headwind. I gave that a very vertical throw. It started panning immediately and then actually got back out and faded. Safe to say this is probably the most overstable disc of this category, this putt and approach, this approach disc like in between putter and mid type category that everybody's obsessed with. I think this might be the most overstable one. It's certainly looking that way. I'm gonna give it one more toss on a backhand, really crank over on it and just see what it does with a little more speed because my forehand obviously isn't going quite as far, but I think it's safe to say that I think I figured this disc out pretty well. One more throw here with the Sockibomb Slammer. We're just gonna really crank this on a backhand just to see. You know, we got a little bit of tailwind, so I don't expect anything crazy, but just to see if it's a fraud. That thing's crazy. Okay, so here's the deal about Sockibomb Slammer. It is, I think it's safe to say I've thrown Harps, I've thrown Zones, I've thrown Gators, you know, all that stuff. I think this is the most overstable. It's especially for just a stock run, because some of those other discs, you can find ones that are really beefy. This one, and this is also a baseline disc, which those are even typically straighter. Very stable. I mean, it it just had its way with my backhand that I threw about as hard as I could. So that being said, I think this disc is going to get a good score from me because it's just, you know, the feel and look of it's kind of like what you'd expect. It's really your meat and potatoes overstable approach disc. But I think it's filling the slot that they intended, a slightly different slot, because I think it's going to be a little more overstable, especially if you're throwing the Trilogy lineup. I think it's going to be a little more beefy than your Harps. So with that being said, I think I'm going to give this a foundation certified score of an 8.7. Pretty high score. I'm a sucker for discs like this, and I think that this one being as overstable as it is and the feel I really like, I think this is a great disc. I think they're going to sell a lot of these. I highly recommend them. They're going to be in stock as soon as they release to the public. FoundationDiscGolf.com. They're going to have them in stock. Make sure to go check them out.